Welcome, ACSA family and friends, to Common Purpose and Common Times. As always, I'm Wes Smith, and proud as ever to be your executive director. Tonight's topic is braving the future for ACSA. And our membership deserves nothing less than exactly that: brave and courageous leadership on behalf of our members, and more importantly, on behalf of our students. They need us now more than ever. And so in a bit, we'll introduce you to three of our leaders. I say introduce. If you don't know them, it's problematic because they're three of the most significant, important leaders in our association. We'll get to hear from them tonight about their vision for ACSA, their passion, and for them, why being brave is essential to ACSA's future. But before we get into that, let's do as we always do and update you on a couple of things that are going on. Selfishly, I have to admit that yesterday was my 4-year anniversary of having a full cardiac arrest, being brought back 11 minutes later, and here today. Grateful for folks that jumped in at the health club to help me out. It's just a reminder for me, and hopefully for all of you, that we have to prioritize our wellness. As selfless as you are as leaders, prioritize you, take care of yourself, be healthy, be well, be mindful. Anyway, I'm sure glad to be here. Let's talk about some of those updates in the field. Last week we talked about SB 98, and we reassured you that we had talked with not only the administration, but the Assembly and Senate staff. And the message from all of them was unanimous. They want to provide you flexibility. They certainly want, to the extent safe and practicable, for us to have in-session physical schooling. That's what they want. They know it's good for our students if it's safe for them to return to school. The American Academy of Pediatrics said as much recently, and you know that. We know that's true. And so we're going to try to get there. We're going to try to get there safely. But that's the operative word. It has to be safe. And they wanted you to know, the administration, Assembly, and Senate, that they're going to support you as you work with your local stakeholders, including county public health, to define how you reopen schools. Remember, we mentioned this last week. For those of you that were here, I apologize for being redundant. But for those who weren't, they said that you don't have to have a doctor's note for students. If parents keep them out because they're nervous about susceptibility to COVID-19, that's all you need. You don't need it to be certified. You don't need a doctor's letter. We even asked them difficult questions like this. What if you and your stakeholders, your labor groups, your parents, your local county public health, decide that for your district, it is only safe to open virtually initially? Would they support that? And they said, again, and this is where they got a little bit nervous, they said, again, our goal here is to get students back into classrooms as soon as it's safe. But yes, we would provide that flexibility. So the message that you have to hear is you have support from the administration to work locally and determine what's safest for your students, your employees, and for your community. And then we'll support you in those decisions as well, as we always do. I also wanted to mention AB 1384. As you look at flexibility and working locally to make decisions, the next question that always comes up is, but what does that do for our legal liability? If CDC or CDE or CDPH says, here is the expectation to the extent practical, and I say it's only practical to do X, am I more liable? And so we know that's a concern for you. We know what happened in the fires related to loss of learning and things like that, decisions that were made in a crisis. And so we're working with Assemblymember O'Connell on 1384 to provide you some legal protection as you do what's in the best interest of your students. And we know this is going to be a challenging one because there are going to be a lot of attorneys who won't like this, and they're going to fight against it, and some other groups. We're doing it because we know that you need those protections as you plan to re-engage your students, your staff, and your communities. But in any event, we'll keep giving you our updates. We have our weekly news reports as well, our lunchtime Wednesday news breaks with Naj and Edgar. A lot of you have been signing in for those. We'll keep giving you the best information we have and fight for you and your students every day. So, hey, let's introduce these great leaders. And I'm so lucky tonight to have them participate. The future is bright with ACSA. I'm sure grateful for Dr. Linda Kaminsky and her leadership. But July brings in our new executive committee. And so we've got our president tonight, Ron Williams, who is joining us. We've got our president-elect, Charlie Hoffman, who is joining us. And Dr. Erin Simon is joining us as well. And she's our new vice president. We're grateful for each of them. Charlie gets the award hands down for best location and best backdrop. And no, that is not a green screen. That is a beautiful live shot. So welcome ACSA leaders. And let's just jump right in. I'm going to start with Ron and then ask this of all of you. But I'd like for you to tell everybody, what you do, what your day job is. We all know that I just mentioned these roles you have at ACSA. Those are volunteer roles. Each of you has a day job, a really, really important, busy day job, as do all of our members. Yet ACSA exists because of volunteerism like you. But share your day job. And then the first question is this: what first engaged you in ACSA? Or what hooked you first to ACSA? So Ron, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you so very much, Wes. I'm the proud superintendent of the Victor Valley Union High School District here in the high desert of Victorville. And reflecting on the question that you gave, what engaged me? I still remember to this very day, I was a new administrator coming into an organization, and one of the employees there said, "Hey, have you ever heard of ACSA?" I didn't know anything about ACSA. But anyway, the person asked me to come in, and I started off as I think I was either the president-elect or vice president or something like that. I didn't realize within 30 days, the president was going to leave, and I became president over a 30-day time frame. But it was the relationships that I was able to establish early on in my professional career that contributed to my strong engagement with ACSA. And since that time, I've been a lifelong member of ACSA.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Charlie, how about you? What first hooked you to ACSA?
Well, first off, I'm a full-time superintendent of Shasta Trinity ROPs, a small ROP JPA, covers Shasta County and Trinity County, 6 districts. Send us kids every day to our ROP center from about 6 different high schools. And I'm part-time superintendent of a small district, 1-site K-8 district. So those 2 jobs kept me hopping before I was doing this with ACSA, but I enjoy all 3. And thanks for having us. Had we been on your first episode, I would have thought it was one more Zoom meeting to do, but after watching these for the last 16 Monday nights, I feel like it's bigger than ESPN. So thanks for having us on. I was first a member of ACSA. I guess I was a member of ACSA for 10 years before I was engaged in ACSA. I was fortunate to be employed by 2 different school districts that paid for my dues as part of my compensation. And it wasn't until my current job that some local leaders who were leaders in ACSA and more senior administrators than I recruited me to be more involved in some committees and councils. I served on the CTE Council for several years. And just before that, the ACSA CAPIA Council or Committee. And subsequent to the CTE Council, the Superintendency Council for a few years. And really, it's kind of surprising to me. After those local ACSA leaders recruited involvement, both of my school boards encouraged me to be more involved, and that probably led to being active on the board. I did regular reports to my school boards, and they felt like they were more informed and probably a little more empowered, and they actually encouraged me to become more involved than I had been. So that's what got me here.
Well, I'm glad they did.
Me too.
Erin, you've got experience in really, really small rural districts. Why don't you tell everybody what your job is and what engaged you first at ACSA?
So I'm Erin Simon. As of July, I am the Assistant Sup of School Support Services for the Long Beach Unified School District. And previously I was the Director of Student Support Services for the Long Beach Unified School District. And as always, it's so great to be with the ACSA family. I think for me, my story is similar to Charlie, just in my engagement. So the first 3 years that I was a member of ACSA, my district paid for my dues. I wasn't too involved, and I didn't really know too much about what ACSA stood for and what they were about, their goals, objectives, didn't really know. And then my mentor, I read an article about her in EdCal about the work she was doing with the Educational Options Council. And I said, oh my God, I called her. I said, oh my God, what is this? You're advocating for the most vulnerable students, especially those students that are within continuation or alternative education schools. How can I become involved, right? This is what I want to do. I want to have some type of involvement and give our kids a voice. And about 3 months later, I was on the Ed Options Council, serving as a member. And then someone like Charlie, probably about a year later, I was voted in as the president-elect. And from there, I just kept rolling and rolling. And I always tell people, ACSA has helped me grow as an educator. I have lifelong friends. I can say I've learned from them, just their institutional knowledge about the organization and just their knowledge about students and working with communities and families and evolving education. So it's not the same. I've learned so much from those aspects. And I can say from a personal standpoint, I believe ACSA has helped me grow and helped me attain different positions throughout my career, has helped me elevate my career. And this is why I'm such a staunch advocate for the organization, because I believe there's so much good, and not just for me personally, but just for students and how we advocate for them. If you look at some things that ACSA has done that has helped students achieve at higher levels, and I know that we have so much more to do, right, within education to ensure that all students have a level playing field, but the work of ACSA is significant. And the work of ACSA is known not just in the state of California, but nationally. And that's something that members need to recognize as well. The voice of ACSA is significantly strong throughout many states. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Oh, thank you all. And that some of the common themes, I just want to make sure that our members hear this is, there are leaders who, for at least several of us, they put us in ACSA before we knew what ACSA was. They paid for it. They fought the fight. They engaged us. When Barry Reed hired me, he said, hey, you're going to be a site administrator and you're going to be on the charter board at ACSA. And I said, well, now site administrator, I applied for the principal job. He said, that's what we call it. So I was afraid to ask him what ACSA was because I didn't think I could handle two dumb questions in my first conversation with my new boss. But he got me engaged that way. And so, the charters have such a big role. The district employees that then fight for membership of their districts and counties, it's huge, absolutely huge for us. Hey, something, and Erin, you're kind of alluding to this, and so I want to dive into this. We believe ACSA is important, but I think ACSA is more important in difficult times than ever. And so why do you think ACSA is essential, especially in difficult times? And Charlie, maybe I'll start with you and you can start with that one.
Okay, way to start out with a light one. More broad than in these times. I think we all became administrative educational leaders because we wanted to do more good. We thought we had more to offer for students and teachers in terms of support and encouragement and those kinds of things. And then when we get in the job, we sometimes find ourselves in a catch-22 of when we fight for the right things, whether it's increased A to G rates or a more equitable distribution of resources than is traditional, rather than fighting for some of the traditional things that the community might favor, like championship athletic programs or building new buildings or field trips. We fight the good fight. We do those things that we believe in. And then sometimes our jobs feel more lonely than ever and less secure than ever. And that's where I think ACSA is most essential. ACSA provides us with the professional development and the collegial network that encourages us, empowers us, and emboldens us to advocate for the underserved in our system, and to do more than simply fight to keep our own jobs, but to really live the purpose that led us into the role.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks for that. Ron, how about you? Why is ACSA necessary?
Well, I think it's the return on leadership. When you look at the over 18,000, approximately 18,000 administrators in the state of California, when you think of what they do and what I do each and every day to make sure that we provide students with a high quality education system in very, very challenging times at this particular point. As a result of the COVID-19, I think this is an excellent example of the return on leadership that the public and our membership is getting from the outstanding leaders that we have within ACSA.
Yeah, thank you. Erin, how about you? Same question.
Well, I think that this is one of those times which is very unusual for people, to where administrators are having to build, right, the plane while flying. And that's just based on just uncertainty or just, this whole COVID-19, issue just being new, right? This horrible infectious disease. And I think with ACSA works to, bring groups together, like-minded people. I know there was so many groups. There were so many groups who were brought together just to design what the reopening of schools and what that should look like, and which also gave district administrators an opportunity to rethink and really dig deeper on how they would reopen schools and reopen schools safely for our students. And then, most importantly, just the advocacy around ensuring that districts did not see that 10% cut in their budgets, which would have been detrimental. And even with the money that, that has been returned, there's still some issues with even how we're going to bring our students safely back to school. But knowing that ACSA is still out there fighting, right? The members are still out there fighting for students is significant and just monumental. So, for me, just having ACSA there as a voice, always thinking a step ahead, right? When I'm contacting ACSA, members or even GR staff members, it's like, have you guys thought about this? Oh, well, we're already on it. We're already on it, where we have a meeting with such and such. We're looking to, push this agenda and get this ready for our students. So that's something that I always appreciate, and something that I want members to know as well. ACSA staff works very hard for its members. And if there's ever something that you think maybe may not be going, quickly enough, or just something that you don't understand, you can always, pick up the phone and contact someone, and they'll let you know exactly where ACSA stands on a position or just the movement that's happening within bills or whatever it may be. So I'm always appreciative of that too.
Erin, thank you for that, and for mentioning the budget. I think we have to keep pointing out that while we're grateful that the May revise didn't become our budget, it's not a hold harmless budget at all. It's a frozen 1920 budget. It's not full and fair, but it wouldn't have been what it is without advocacy from all of you in the field. And our students are going to struggle to come back safely even with those resources. It would have been impossible without them. You also mentioned our reopening group, and I'll tell you that as everyone developed their reopening guidelines, ACSA was the first and only to call out that we need to have high standards for teaching and learning when we reopen schools, because our inequities will be further exacerbated if we don't have high quality standards for teaching and learning. And we talked about that 2 weeks ago with an industry expert, and we have that in our call to action. That is in our core commitments, and certainly one of those reasons why I think ACSA is necessary, as biased as I am. Let's continue that. Let's get back into this conversation that's been front and center for weeks now here on this show, and really all of ACSA's productions, and that's looking at structural inequities and institutional racism. Ron, this is going to be the most unique year ever. Ron and I have talked about this. Lori, my assistant, was distraught one day. Like, this isn't fair to Ron that he's not going to get X, Y, and Z. And I said, man, it ain't fair to anybody. This year is not fair to students, communities, and it's not fair to Ron. And you're dealing with some heavy issues, COVID, what's going on right now with institutional racism, and folks standing up and speaking out. So during your leadership as president in this challenging year, what are you going to focus on to address these structural inequities and institutional racism?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate Linda Kaminsky, our previous president. I think she did an outstanding job focusing on equity. And that's a part of my vision as well, is to continue those efforts. Obviously, there's many challenges that we have, as Erin was saying a few moments ago. We're sort of building the plane and flying it at the same time. But we want to make sure that all students are at the table in the decision-making process. And we want to move from transactional to transformative leadership. We want to look at what policies can be established through our governmental relationships, whether that's on the state level or the national level, to address these issues that we think is really challenging our society, our students, and our parents and our communities.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, as much as this is going to be an interesting year, you're up for the task. You're going to be great, and ACSA is lucky to have you. Charlie, all kidding aside, you and I, we've talked about these issues our whole careers. We're having the same conversations we had 25 years ago. And we're going to keep having them. So until these things are changed, you're going to follow Ron. You're going to be serving as you have served this year. What are you going to be working on and addressing? What are you passionate about with regard to these inequities?
Well, as you know, I'm passionate about too many things. But one thought I had thinking about this question, taking a page from the NFL, and I know the NFL is not the right poster child for proportional representation to correct ethnic disparities along racial lines. But they have a program that a couple of my good friends have really benefited from called the Minority Coaching Fellowship Program. And it gives young Black, mostly, coaches a chance to coach as interns and get a foot in the door, build some collegial relationships as well as some professional learning. And if you look at the few Black head coaches in college football and in the NFL and all of the coordinators, they all participated in that Minority Coaching Fellowship Program. And I was thinking ACSA could do something like that. We could fund minority administrative advancement fellowship opportunities where up and coming prospective administrators or new young administrators could attend ACSA academies or ACSA conferences or even ACSA administrative credential program at a reduced or zero cost, funded by ACSA. I know it's a little out of the box, probably makes you nervous. I know ACSA just went through big budget cuts. I'm hoping things will be better a year from now. But it began my career in teaching in LA Unified, and then left teaching for a little while. My first full-time teaching job after that was in Lake Tahoe, and then after that up here. And I couldn't believe the uniformity of skin color of the faculties, thinking the whole world looked like LA Unified, and it didn't when I got to Tahoe. And when we moved up to Shasta County, Siskiyou County, started to get used to that, and then attended our first ACSA event, the Superintendent Symposium, in 1999, 21 years ago, and was amazed at how old and male and white that group was. And now I'm proud to say 21 years later, that's a very different looking group attending the Superintendent Symposium, but it's not enough. And we know kids need to see teachers that look like them, and kids need to see principals and assistant principals that look like them. And one concrete thing ACSA could do to promote more of that would be to make it easier and actively recruit for participation from our prospective administrators and our new administrators in the great programs that we're already offering.
Well, that's a great idea. And, you know, we've said for years, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget and I'll tell you what you value. So, you know, if it's an issue of cost, if it's one of our values, then you fund that cost. It's an interesting idea. Erin, let's give you a chance with this one as well. You know what, you're going to be working on this, and you have been working on this your whole career. I've known you for a long time. You're going to continue to work on it. In particular, in your role at ACSA, what are you going to be working on?
I think my answer would be very similar to Charlie's in regards to how do we ensure that we have the right people in our pipeline. And it's a conversation that we always have. How do we ensure that more teachers, administrators of color are within this pipeline, right, to help teach our students of color. And I think there's value in that. And how do you do that, right? How do you promote? How do you market? How do you pull those folks in? And I think that's something that we're going to have to be aggressive, but also very creative and innovative in how we do that, because there are not too many teachers of color within that pipeline. And then you move up even to administrators. There are not too many administrators within that pipeline. So being creative with that. I think number one, we have to address, some of the implicit biases. And I know those are hard conversations for, folks to have, but we have to continue to address that and have conversations around that and continue to have those courageous conversations. I know that phrase has been used so much that people are tired of hearing about, let's have courageous conversations, but we do, but we have to define what that is. So it's not really a spray and pray, but it's a deeper dive into, what is maybe stopping maybe our folks of color, African Americans, our Latinx, whomever, from wanting to become teachers, and also having conversations about how we can pull them into that pipeline. But I see a lot of work happening with that. And I think with where we are right now as a nation, we have Black Lives Matter, that's a movement. We have protests just about inequalities that are happening, policing, which makes it even a better time to have these conversations. There's never a best time to talk about racism. People are very uncomfortable about that. But we have to have those conversations. And I'm so happy to see and hear of so many communities just across the nation, especially within California, who are beginning to take deeper dives into this issue. And I want to continue that conversation. But again, being more creative and innovative about how we have that conversation as well.
Important points. And, I'm really proud of our board. Recently, they unanimously supported ACA 5, which is intended to help the disparity of access to universities and colleges and in government jobs. It's exactly what several of you are talking about. And ACSA is supporting it. And we're going to continue to do more work in that regard. We're getting close on time, and I want to do a lightning round in a second. We have had some questions. Deborah Granger wanted to know about anything we know about testing next year. We haven't heard a lot, because right now they were providing those flexibilities to close the year, to open the year, and what does LCAP look like with flexibilities? What are we going to monitor next year? And the data aren't looking good related to COVID-19. We're seeing outbreaks like crazy. And so that's the conversation at the state level now, but we'll keep you posted. And then Pam asked how ACSA is going to change to continue to promote professional development this coming year. And I can tell you that we are already digitizing much of our content. We're finding partners that already have content digitized so that we can take training to our members in a cost-effective, flexible way, which is brilliant. You don't have to travel. You don't have to leave. You can be edified. You can grow your toolkit right from home, right from your backyard on the river, wherever you can find the time. So that's one thing we'll be doing differently, and we're excited about that. Our conferences, we've already done some of that with the Women's Conference this summer, our Principals Institute this summer. So we're doing that work as we speak. But that brings us to how about a lightning round? And I know we're a little over. Those folks that don't have big plans tonight, maybe they can hold on for a couple more minutes. But ACSA has to continue to pivot. We have to evolve to be better at supporting our members and our students, because our members and students deserve no less. So one thing that you think ACSA needs to do differently, or an area where we need to evolve to better meet the needs of our members. Erin, I'm going to start with you this time.
I think ACSA has done a good job about bringing students into the picture. I would like to see us bring more students into the conversations that we're having, and being creative in how we do that. I think students' voices are very powerful. I think sometimes as educators, we make decisions without including them, and sometimes those decisions don't work well for our students. So I just want to hear their experiences, what they believe would work for education. And as a former principal, I know that by doing that, you get more buy-in from your students, and they want to be a part of that system because they feel like they had some voice in it. It's just like us when we vote because of certain initiatives. We vote for people just because of what they stand for. And I think we need to bring in more students to discuss some of the issues that we're facing and get their perspective on how we should change or make better change within the system as well.
Love it. Love it. Charlie, you, one thing that needs to look different for us. Where can we?
ACSA Academies, one of the best things that we do, but if we could do those with less travel, lower cost, and even better excellence of instruction statewide, I think we can do all of that using distance learning technology, which we've all become somewhat experts in. And I think ACSA's been working on that and is poised to launch with something along those lines. And I've thought for a while that was a big thing. We heard that in the development of the strategic plan a couple of years ago.
Yep, absolutely. Right on. Ron, how about you?
Well, I think that, we have an outstanding strategic plan to stay focused on what we've been working on. Also integrating the challenges that we have in a virtual environment. I think being agile and adaptive, I think those are all factors that we can continue to improve as an organization.
Well, hey, since each of you mentioned our strategic plan, I'm going to get one more answer in there to folks, because we had Bhavna Narula, and I hope I said your name right. If I didn't, I sincerely apologize, but asked this question. Empowering our leaders to engage in anti-racist work with staff is critical. How do we make that a focus of all of our academies next year? And it was just mentioned, that's specifically called out in our strategic plan, that we are going to have a framework for evaluating every single one of our academies to ensure that it addresses these very issues, as well as advocacy, because we feel like once we get woke, then we got to speak up. We got to start advocating. Folks, help me thank our leaders that took time out tonight to share some of their thoughts about leadership. I can tell you that I'm so just inspired by this board. I work harder because of them. We are in good hands, ACSA friends and family. This is a great board. And these folks on the executive committee, I admire each one of them. So to the three of you, thank you for volunteering. I used to do the work, so I get that your day jobs are pretty stressful. So thank you. And please also thank your families for allowing you to volunteer. My wife reminds me often that I can't forget that part of the support framework. So thank you to your families and your friends that support you as you support all of us. Folks, again, thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Monday night on Common Purpose and Common Times. As always, be safe, stay well. Thanks a lot.